Hi, my name is Eloy and I go by Umbramancer as well. I've been involved with RPGs for about 40 years and I don't consider myself a stranger to role-playing, but I've been watching a lot of videos this past week and I thought I would make this video really to thank Crispy from C4 Crispy for the inspiration to try and consciously improve my roleplay. I found out about Crispy from Black Lodge Games, who were also talking about this, and a lot of videos by Sean Driscoll, Shonner, and Abraham from talking about games. And so, well, I just wanted, again, to thank you for the inspiration of say, well, maybe it is something worth dedicating conscious effort to improve. And so I decided to just try it. And I'm happy to report that last night I played in a game of Barbarians of Lemuria, which you can find in the Ivan Mike 1968 channel. And I put it into practice. I put the advice into practice, and I'm happy to report that, yes, I felt some improvement. It felt right. I already role-played, I believe, and so this is just pushing it a little bit longer, making a conscious effort to stay in the first person for longer, and an attempt to communicate other things instead of asking the GM directly, right? More dialogue with both fellow player characters and non-player characters. And yeah, it's an improvement, and particularly as regards what I consider the hardest thing to do in character or through the means of first-person dialogue, and that is gathering sensory data. Shonner and Abram from talking about games, they've been talking about this for years with mutual friends, right? I'm friends with Anthony from the Runeslinger channel and the Casting Shadows blog, and Ivan from Ivan Mike 1968 channel. We've been playing together for, I think it's 6 years now. Is it 6 years? 5 years. But they've also talked about this philosophy of trying to stay in the character for longer. And so it's kind of funny because I sort of dismissed it for a while. But then these videos got me thinking on the subject again, and so I downloaded Shonner's book, which, in case anyone is listening and doesn't know, it's free from DriveThru, and I read it. It's not that long, and so it's a good, fast read, and you have to think about it, right? I think I read it faster than most people because I have had part of these conversations with Anthony and Ivan in the past. I think the book articulates that philosophy of roleplay very well. Abraham seems to be in agreement because particularly with the most recent videos over the last 2-3 days, all he's been saying just backs up Shonner and even pushes it further into the realm of first person, right? I think Abraham insists more on first person than Shonner does, but they are speaking the same language with the same aim, or at least so it seemed to me. So perhaps this is a question to you, assuming you've read the book, because you do quote Shonner and Abraham a lot. So I figure perhaps you've read Shonner's book. And so I found for myself the two, shall we say, biggest obstacles in my way. Shonner outlines them in chapter 5 of the book, right? The Hard Way. I think that's the name of it's the name of the book, but it's also the actual chapter name, and it lives up to it, right? It's the hardest part, I think. And it's basically two things, right? One is don't speak the mechanics, which I believe comes from a very good intention of trying to communicate difficulties via, shall we say, normal speech, non-mechanical speech, in-character speech, to avoid saying, what do I need to succeed? An 8 on my 5 dice or whatever it is. Instead, Shonner gives a couple of examples which are very good. I'm a bit ambivalent on this mechanic. I think under some circumstances it can work, but I wonder if is the effort to find the words or find the means of asking for the information you need for the role. I wonder if it's worth it, because sometimes the effort is, how do I ask, how difficult it is to shoot this guy right now? What the modifiers are, because circumstances might be different, right? So Shonner speaks about assume it's average, right? But I've played Traveler as well, and I've been in a situation in a spacesuit crossing between ships, right, to a derelict ship, and figures coming out and just lifting my rifle and started firing. But, what's the dialogue that I'm going to have? Who am I going to ask? I might ask my player to my side, is like, I see people coming out. I wonder if it's going to be difficult to hit them. I don't know. I'm sure smarter people and more fluent people than I can probably do it. But it just seems to me that the effort, I would stop dead silent for minutes while I search for the appropriate way to ask for the data in character, making an effort to avoid speaking out loud, whereas I could just pop in quickly, right? Where I'm 100 feet from the ship, right? I know that because the game master probably, the runner probably told me already. But are there other modifiers to the situation? How do I ascertain? Maybe it's raining, maybe it's dark, maybe it's I don't know. I fear making assumptions and being wrong, and then having to roll back the actual gameplay just to clarify, no, you forgot this modifier or the other thing. And I fear the delay of my not so agile searching for the appropriate words, stalling the game, versus just asking, what's the modifier? And the GM just saying it's a -2 because it's raining. Otherwise, it's 100 feet, so it's average or whatever it is, right? Just roll an 8. And I could just roll it and say, okay, I hit, and then I narrate what happens. Although, now that I think about it, even just saying that, it's just don't even narrate. I have a dice cam, so I can just roll and not say I hit, right? But I guess this is all part of the learning process, right? I have to try to be more conscious of that. The counter argument is that just saying that's a hit, it's a moment that everybody around the table celebrates. And so do you sacrifice that part of the experience in favor of the role play? How disruptive is it for you? So I think it's a balancing act, right? Risks, not risks and benefits, but benefits and drawbacks, right? I rather enjoy when somebody else rolls like a very high number and we all just scream around the table, yes, critical, or whatever it is, right? So I'm ambivalent about the whole asking for mechanics and just incorporating results without acknowledging the mechanical aspect of the game, which I am a rules medium person, to quote the frustrated game master. I'm rules medium, right? I'm not super fan of heavy rules and not too light, right? But some mechanics are good, right? And I enjoy when the system is, just right for my taste. Not too heavy, not too light. I enjoy the mechanical aspect as well. And so the rolling of the dice and the celebration, or the groaning and the lamentation of defeat of the dice is, I think, is an aspect I don't care to dismiss so lightly in favor of a few extra seconds of roleplay. These days, Anthony and Ivan and I talk about it's like swimming, right? So you immersion, right? It just correlates with even the natural language there. So it's like a human person, right? You dive down, you swim underwater because you're immersed for a while and you're role playing, right? And then you just go up, pick up some air, discuss the mechanics, and go back in, right? And I think we've been doing it so long that it's kind of second nature to just go up for air, go back into the immersion, and just keep swimming, right? So I think what I'm doing right now is trying to prolong the time immersed, the time underwater, if you will. So instead of, coming up like a regular person, in a minute or so, then maybe just try to go for 5 minutes, right? Like a dolphin, swimming maybe. But yeah, I don't think I care to dismiss the mechanical side. The other thing that Shonner mentions in chapter 5 is ignore initiative and combat rounds. And I think this is a bridge too far, for me at least, because the intention is good, but I think the potential for chaos is just too big. We'd be speaking over each other, the players and I at least, and we'll be going like, boom, I shoot, or boom, I run, boom, I do this. And it might be too chaotic, right? At some point, the GM is going to have to stop and say, wait. You tell me first, and then you tell me what you're doing, right? And so once the GM has to stop and impose order, that's basically initiative, right? And so again, I just wonder, isn't it easier just to swim, right? Come up for air, roll the dice, establish initiative, and it's not like we delay too long, right? I think this is one thing where it's not just a personal effort, but it has to be a group effort, right? Where the entire group is, as soon as GM says initiative, everybody rolls and everybody reports. And if you've noticed, we tend to do things like show the numbers, right? I just roll my dice because I have a dice cam. And so, hope the GM picks it up. Then again, this is another area where I am ambivalent with just going like this, right? Because if the GM has his head down and he's writing something, it's probably best if he hears, I rolled a 4, and then he can just write, Eloy 4, versus having to look up and, okay, what's that? 6 on the die, a 4? No, it's a 4, and then writing it down. Which is faster? Remember, you're coming up for a quick breath of air, right? But you want to go back in and keep swimming, right? So speed is a factor in the mechanical portion of the game, if you will. Or at least that's my feeling. And, the abolition of combat rounds is also, to me, a bridge too far. I think it's just chaos, right? I'm a loudmouth, and I don't know when to shut up, so I would be constantly acting over other people, and then it would be a conscious effort to, okay, just shut up and let Jim speak, or whoever it is. So I just think that combat, at some point, the GM is going to have to impose some order. And again, the flip side is we've been doing it so long, it's second nature, right? It's been way too many years with this structure of mechanics and immersion. So anyway, those are some thoughts. And I wonder if you thought about these last two things, right? The don't speak the mechanics bit and the ignore initiative and ignore combat rounds. And I just wanted to know how you felt about that. And I suppose I should tag Shonner and Abraham as well. So anyway, thanks again for the inspiration. Black Lodge Games called you White Pill channel, and that's what got me to you, man. It's like, okay, that's what I need, some positive content in our neck of the woods, and I'm glad to have found it. So thank you very much. Take care, and thanks for listening. Bye-bye.